Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the DEX Show. Tim, I always feel like I'm welcoming you back from some round the world trip. Like I just feel like you're rarely on the show. You're always in the air, and when you are on the show, I'm like, welcome back. Where have you been?
And we got to work out we have to work out the remote join from the airplane. I think, yeah. And we mentioned in one of the other shows, Tom, the grandfather status. My age is showing after a 5-week business trip. It's an 11 traversing 11 time zones. I'm kind of feeling it right now. But yeah, it's great to be back with you, bud.
Absolutely, mate. Great to see you. And I'm going to welcome you back with a test. And this is relevant to our guest, who we're going to get to momentarily, because we are sort of celebrating this month. We had our show in Boston where we spoke about the launch of the Next Think DEX certifications, which people can find and take on the DEX Show DEX Hub mothership. We'll have links below. 5 modules, and look, Tim, have you done one yet? Have you sat a module? I mean, you of all people don't get me wrong. There's no judgment in this question.
No, so the last episode I professed what a great thing it was to go get certified. So you're calling me on it. I have to go get certified.
Come on, you of all people, you're gonna sail through them, or will you? Or will you? That's the question. So here's a question. I got a question for you, man. This is a question that stumped me a couple of times. This is from Module 1, setting a DEX baseline. Okay. And the question is, IT, you get one answer here. IT collects hard metrics and employee sentiment data over a defined period of time. Does this mean they have established a DEX baseline for the company? Here are the options. Yes, because they've collected both hard metrics and employer sentiment over a defined period of time. No, because the subset is too small to clearly to classify as a DEX baseline. 3, no, because the data was not benchmarked against other companies. 4, yes, because IT is provided with standard devices and experiences can be extended to the entire organization. You got those?
Yeah, I do. So the last one is clearly false.
Yeah, last one's false.
I would go with one of the and I don't think the false one, the one that's not a big enough sample size is correct. I would say yes, because they've collected sentiment and device metrics.
Mate, I'm sorry. It was answer 2. But look, you did fail. You haven't failed the whole certification. Don't take it too badly. And look, for the record, this one stumped me. It stumped me so badly. That's why I chose it for you, Tim. And you've got to do, when you're taking the certification, you have to go back to the beginning when you don't get it. And look, everybody who's listening, if you haven't already registered for these certifications, we have hundreds of people, hundreds of students in the DEX Academy, in the DEX Certification Academy, and please do join them. They're absolutely free to take. They're good fun. They're tricky. They're challenging, and they're meaningful. Anyway, it's totally relevant to our guest, actually, who for a reasonably amusing reason, as he's probably guessed himself. He is Satyam Kantamneni. Satyam is an author. He's an innovator. He's an expert in user experience in B2B software. Satyam, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Tom and Tim. It's a privilege being here.
And we spoke before, and what was interesting, what stood out actually, was one of the principles that you kind of stand by is that if somebody is if a B2B software requires training, it's kind of doing something wrong. No, the user experience should be so seamless that it shouldn't require certification. Now, let me add a caveat then to the DEX certifications. They are not product. They are not there to teach you about the product. They are to teach you to teach you about the space, the growing space of digital employee experience. Is that a little different, Satyam? Is that exempt from your clarification?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Maybe let's start with a story here, and I think it'll probably help understand a little bit more. When I studied something called human factors engineering. This is when I was back in grad school, and one day there was a problem that was given to us and said how would people interact with a particular system, because it's the intersection of how humans are factored into complex systems or technologies, and I'm like, that's common sense. Like, why would you not do it that way? That's common sense. And something that my professor at that point said, which also started my career on a large level, was it's not what's common for you is not common for everyone else. What would be common for a grandmother is not common for a 2-year-old kid. What's common for a new into school person versus somebody who's kind of done a PhD, it's not common. And I think the pursuit of what is common is actually what is basically the essence of the whole line of work. Now, why I say that is, if you know what is common for your user and you build it for them, you don't have to certify them. Especially for a product, if it's built for someone, if you build something that's uncommon for them, then you are certifying them. And that's kind of the whole pursuit of building systems that are good user experience means that you understand the user and you are kind of going along with their experience. I think that's the essence of it. But yes, I think when I say companies that have to certify, that means they don't understand the user and they are trying to explain to them ways what is uncommon for that user, but common for the one who designed it or built it. And now you're trying to get those two worlds to meet. And that's why you're trying to certify or train or and all the other investments that go into it.
Mm-hmm. And obviously you're a managing partner at UXReactor. And one of the reasons we were so keen to get you onto the show is because your area of expertise, as you've just sort of helpfully began to articulate, it shines a light on an area which is also supremely interesting to us at NextThink, and that's the whole concept of experience at large, right? Coming at it from a very different angle, and yet one that kind of penetrates our own, right? Because we do make B2B software that specializes there. I mean, I wonder if we could maybe begin, Satyam, by just hearing your thoughts on experience as a concept and its significance in today's digital economy and tech space.
Absolutely. So first off, if anyone ever has an experience with anywhere, right? You go to a hotel, you go to a restaurant, you go to an airline or wherever, like a product, it doesn't happen serendipitously. Someone actually is thinking through it and designing that, right? Whether that's a check-in experience or a great guest experience at a restaurant. And when you start looking at that, like, hey, experiences don't just happen. They're designed by someone. They're thought through by someone. So when you start extrapolating it to the over-digitizing world, I mean, just think about it. I mean, so much money investment has gone into building digital systems, and especially with the pandemic, everything is now digital, or at least has been put up in the fore. But what is an experience? I mean, and I'll probably take a step back and then share that, and I'll come back. Any event or occurrence that leaves an impression is an experience. Mm-hmm. Right. And in the software world, not many people are spending the time thinking about that. They very much are like, okay, you're going to do it on paper. I'm going to put it on a digital form. But is that the best experience? Having no form is the best experience, right? And those are the ways someone has to spend the time thinking through that in an organization. And in the world where we are trying to add features and functionalities and elements, we have stopped thinking about what's common for that other person. And we actually don't even know what the other person is. In fact, as you start looking at most of the technology world, most development or building of the product itself is happening in a distributed manner, where the user or the person that you're building it for is not as understood if somebody is like sitting halfway around the world or like in some other part of the world and then just taking requirements and building it, which is why experience kind of starts becoming a casualty. On the flip side, companies that figure it out are like nailing it, they're killing it in terms of experiences and everything. And I still say that one thing that Apple does really well, it understands its users and it tries to build more and more common products and common services around them. And that's the secret of becoming the most valuable company in the world. And many other companies, I say this, with all, Samsung makes everything that Apple does and makes more. It makes fridges, it makes TVs, but Samsung is a tenth of the market cap of Apple. Samsung was, last time I checked, was over 240 billion, and Apple is 2.4 trillion. So, and that's kind of where you start realizing that experiences are where people will stick, they will sell, they will buy, and which is what I think B2B software still haven't gotten or understood, which is why I made that my pursuit.
You often hear Tesla kind of underscored in this kind of context as well as a great example.
Absolutely.
Experience is above products or as part of a product, you know. And talk to us, Satyam, about your own. You already alluded to your specific educational background, which I think fed into this. But what was your own path through to becoming a sort of expert in this field and space?
I speak about that in my book too, but at the highest level is I believe in the philosophy of multidisciplinariness, being a polymath. So I studied engineering, then I studied human-centered design, then I studied business, and I played different roles. I played the engineer role, the design role, the leadership role, the business guy role, and then I realized that the best comes out when you actually are at a cusp of understanding a lot of other things. And when you kind of bring all those things together, that's when you truly start appreciating what you're doing. You just can't be one and not be effective, which is why today at my firm, we have 22 different educational disciplines, and all of them coming together to kind of solve, real good design problems. But that's kind of the background overall. When I started this, there was no profession of user experience. I mean, I started my career during the dot-com bust, where everybody who could build a website was a designer and building, so on and so forth. But as systems became more and more, pervasive, and systems became more and more like, you're doing everything today. I'm like, you're doing e-health on digital systems. You're doing banking on digital systems. You are education on digital systems. I mean, there's just so much going on right now. And I think today the world needs a lot more of somebody who kind of thinks about the experience and designs it right, and then makes that the process work in more efficient manner. So that's kind of how the last decade has kind of evolved. And obviously with the advent of the iPad and the Apple, I mean, the consumerization of systems became very, very aggressive. So again, for us, I think that's how the line of work and my line of, so I first discovered this line of work. It was only military that used to do a lot of the human factors work. And then with the whole advent of technology and consumerization, it kind of became more common. And most companies today, I would say, of any repute in the software world, have a pretty sizable user experience team that's thinking through it. But again, it's an adolescent, so I would still think that 9 out of 10 of them still are struggling their way to make it a business driver versus a business supporter.
Satyam, going back to some of your earlier comments, just anecdotally, we just here at NextThink rolled out a platform for training and certifying our sales folks in sales enablement. And we chose this product because of their intentional design on the experience of using their product. They modeled it after their interface, their workflow, everything you do in the user interface is modeled after YouTube. So they thought in the kind of the context of the users of their software in a way that we don't now have to train them on it. They know how to use it. It's intuitive. We don't need to certify them. We turn it on, we give them a brief tour, and they already know it. And it really shows the intentional design. I contrast that with my 25, 30 years in enterprise IT, where we did not intentionally think about user experience. We deployed software as we were requested to, and then the PC just becomes a collection of software. There's no intentional design to how they interact with different applications. And it's just the contrast between those two things is striking.
Absolutely. See, again, the one data set that you also, it's a very data set driven profession, right? So one of the data sets for YouTube is you went there to watch one video, ended up watching 10. And if that same behavior is replicated in the sales training side, then actually you nailed it, right? And the experience, obviously experience has different layers to it. There's how the UI side, the workflow side, and then obviously how you kind of think and talk in a way that people can completely understand it. But yeah, absolutely. I think giving people what they expect when they expect it is kind of one big part of driving a great experience.
And this is why I was really interested to talk to you today. In the concept or the space of digital employee experience is not that old. But I think when IT thinks about that concept, they consider a good employee experience is just not breaking it, right? The applications work as they're supposed to. IT doesn't roll out a patch that causes a blue screen or a slowdown. But it's bigger than that, right? What's the dynamic between that technology and the experience of employees? Does tech just need to work, error free, or talk about the how it's kind of bigger than that?
So I'll share with you the philosophy that I work with, and it's the philosophy, and which also extends to my firm. We say we start with the user. We understand what their journey and their experience is. Then we design it, and then we think about technology. And technology is the last thing in the equation that you're bringing together. And that always is something that it takes time, but you don't throw technology at a problem. Now, talking about employee experience, it actually starts way before they actually even become an employee, right? It starts from the point that they're looking for a job, or the first time they hear about a company. That digital experience starts there. They apply for a role, they interview, they go through a process, they kind of get accepted, they then get a job, then they pick their hardware or whatever that is, then they actually get to familiarize with their teammates. They start their process. It's the same. That journey that they go through is all employee experience. And today, in most times, it's very disjointed because the manager is one part of that touch point. Your IT is another part of that touch point. Your interviewers is another part of it. I'm just giving you the first part of the journey, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're engaging and you're collaborating and so on and so forth. So that's all of that as not actually, if there's one single person that can state that in a company, absolutely, I think that company is very aligned. But it's always a disjointed thing. And I always, and one of the worst cases of experience design is when you ship your org structure to the user or the person that's experiencing it. We're like, oh, that's that department. Oh, that's that process. Right. Oh, that's that thing. And then we will, legal will get back to you. And I think that's bad experience. Every time you kind of are not getting what you wanted at the time you want it, but in your mental model, I mean, not in terms of any other thing. So that's where it starts getting broken more and more. So actually, if you ask me, digital employee experience is front and center, starts way before they actually become an employee. And then the other thing is tools. I mean, like one of the things as B2B, when we work in that side, a lot of the tools we build is for the internal team that are building and working on and delivering the value. And that's always like, again, back to that thing, we can train them on that because they're a captive audience. You don't train anyone on anything. I mean, you need to give people what they are. And again, today, especially in a tight market with a lot of the talent, you can't afford, sitting and spending 3 months training someone on a product or a system, which is why I think the more you think about it, the more effective it is. And then obviously everything here, loyalty goes up when the people have great experience. Efficiency goes up when they actually are doing what they can do in a vast manner. And I just think it's an area of huge, huge opportunity.
Yes, I think we can agree that there's an intersection between a designed experience and a product design. We've all worked with those apps that we would say aren't very intuitive. It's clumsy, it doesn't work well, but you say, well, it's not very intuitive. But I think that's maybe being too kind to the apps. It's more than just being intuitive. It's got to be intentionally designed. Do you think there's maybe it's not even a question of whether or not you think there is. Why do you think there is a lack of appreciation on the design side still in some spaces to that fundamental need to have intentional design? Why do some apps do it really well and other apps just don't get it?
I actually blame that back to our profession too, right? So if somebody wants to build a very deliberate experience, they need somebody who can also design that. And I think one of the biggest, I would say, challenges with this line of work is that the word design convolutes it a lot.
Right.
And design automatically, everyone thinks is like, oh, I need pretty screens. I need, it needs to look good. And so you're kind of starting to focus on like, hey, I want to really, no one focus, they say Apple's UI is good, but no one thinks that Apple is actually a slim phone, and there's so many engineers that made that experience that it feels great in your hand, that the experience is transcends so many areas. And when everyone throws UI like at it, and so they make it pretty, they want to do it that way. But honestly, I think it's like any bottle of, wine. It may look great. It may from outside, when you drink it, you don't like it, you're not going to buy it again. But it may not look great, but you may drink it, and then you want it again and again, and that just becomes its own favorite. The same applies here. I would say to a large extent, a lot of the companies want to go and apply the design part. They don't understand that to do that, you really need to kind of go focus on the user, understand them, and further percolate that in your organization, because just one person understanding it doesn't help anyone. Everybody in your organization. I say this to any leader that comes to me and says, like, I'm investing so much in design and I'm not getting anywhere. I say, go ask these 4 questions to 5 people in your company randomly. Who's your top user? What are their top pain points? What are they doing about it? And how do they know they have solved it when they have done something about it? And then you will realize that, first of all, your answers will be all over the place, and most times. And then also you will start seeing that most people can't really articulate that well in a concise manner. And that means that you're not user-centric. You don't understand the user. And so whatever you do after that, you build systems, buy systems, you're all going to kind of go in the wrong direction.
IT people are traditionally techies, right? And when they hear the word design, it's what's my communication protocol to integrate with this other system? How do I ingest the data? Where does this checkbox? How do I connect the function to the box? It's the technical workings, and I don't think that we've really paid enough attention to that intentional design of the experience versus the intentional design of the functionality. It has to work, and it has to work error-free, but it could be a very horrible experience. What, in your background or your experience, have you seen, other than the Apples of the world and the Teslas, who does it really well? What's an example of someone who's got a great digital experience, great usability, and great workflow and technical design? Can they all be implemented in harmony? And who's done it well?
I think it takes, there are companies that are doing it well. And the point is, that's the reason why the Apples and the Teslas and the Airbnbs come to the fore. Right. And you see a lot of them, right? So these are all, but doing all of them in sequence and doing it right takes a system. And have companies been able to perfect that system? I think that's kind of the foundational problem. Right? Some people actually are really good at building a product. But then they don't have the service experience around that really well thought out. Some people are good at understanding the user needs, but they don't have the experimentation framework of iterating with users and collaboratively doing that as well thought out. And I think that's kind of where you start seeing that the system itself doesn't come together, which is also back to your previous question. Many companies don't realize that it's actually a multivariate problem. It actually needs its own leader. Right? Many companies have a chief marketing officer, don't have a chief experience officer, even though all departments need to come together to drive that experience. And that's where nuances of those kind of then start percolating downwards. Right? Apple has a chief design officer, right? Many companies don't. And that's where you start, it becomes bastardized in the process, and then it never gets shipped. But again, when you start looking at the micro level, I think USAA really thinks about its offline member experience. They build the product well, they know the user well, they drive those things, and again, they have a great digital experience to kind of go along with it. And those are just nuances when they start when you know your user, they will kind of tell you how to innovate, and they will point you to all the pain points that they have. And that's all. A company just needs to follow the user and the pain points, and you will always be out innovating. But even today, as I said, many companies don't even know what the top pain points for the top users are.
Yeah, I've just to kind of link that great experience with customer loyalty. I'm a 35-year member of USAA. Great service, great experience, and I will never leave them. It's and that's the kind of loyalty that an application and an experience can drive. It's a great example.
Right, and I'll give you. I used to work for PayPal. That's where a long time back, and a lot of money, and this is actually an internal study that was done on the trust and safety team, which is what I was supporting and with my design team. One of the data set which was very profound for me when I was there was, for a lot of times we were like, hey, trust and safety would be like, if anyone has an issue with PayPal, then they would open a dispute. And then we're like, hey, we will do our level best so no disputes ever get opened. That was actually what we were spending a lot of the energy on. And then after a point, we said, how about trying a different experiment? And some of the product managers there, in fact, a really good friend of mine, Colin Rule, was actually leading some of those things. He said, let's kind of see let's measure that against when someone has a bad experience, and then what do we do with it, versus kind of trying to avoid and putting all these things to kind of deflect any possible issues, which is just too hard to manage. Mm-hmm. And then we realized that if someone has a bad experience, and then we make it right, their usage goes off the charts. I mean, they're much higher than somebody else. And see, again, those are the nuances that you kind of start thinking through. The other company that comes in the same line is Disney. Disney actually has, in the theme parks, one of the most common things that happen with a lot of kids running around is kids get lost, or at least they wander around. And they actually, every cast member has a lost kid experience, well thought out and well registered. So if as soon as a kid is lost, the Disney cast member knows what the protocol is. And again, I mean, it's all highly, there's tons of cameras, there's tons of, things, and it's a very safe area. So, 99.99 times you will actually find the kid, and then they're like, hey, here's the thing, don't worry. And so the whole process is scripted as a lost kid experience. And that's when you start to say every element of that is kind of thought through and is built out. And in the same construct, when you start looking at employee experiences, how does someone get onboarded? How would someone get deboarded? How would someone kind of take a time off? How would someone kind of have a stolen computer experience, right? So these are all nuances that actually have to be thought through. I had a guy on my team who actually one day was in a meeting, and suddenly someone spilled a cup of water on his computer. And he's like freaking out. Like, what do I do? But that's an experience that team someone has to think through, because you'll have damages, and say like, what's the process immediately, and then how does someone come in and pitch in? These are nuances that kind of, as I said in the PayPal experience, what you do when something bad goes wrong is actually going to define your loyalty and everything else that happens afterwards.
Yeah, Tom was late for a meeting this morning. I thought we were going to have to employ our lost kid experience to go find him.
I was providing a Tomless meeting experience.
I love the word. I love the word. When we start adding the suffix of experience to anything, it just, your mind plays very different games with that.
I thought about it when you said a stolen computer experience. I was like a thief being like, I provide stolen computer experiences. How popular that would be. Satyam, I can imagine that AI is proving quite a useful and disruptive force in your analysis and of user experiences. And I wonder if you could give some insight into whether that's the case and how.
Absolutely. I think if you really go back to the basics of what is AI or what is artificial intelligence, it's just a modeling of human behavior. Right, and so again, someone who studies human behavior and studies what is common in human behavior, I think AI is the models are getting very strong, and the models are getting smarter. I still think it's ways to go for it to kind of truly understand behavior and predict behavior, and then start providing experiences. But what you start seeing is something very profound happening. I'll probably talk about the most common thing that in AI that's happened in the last few months, which is ChatGPT, right? And one thing that's kind of happened with that, it not only can understand your question, it can answer your question, as well as give you code to kind of to implement something that you want to do in that line of the area of work. Now, suddenly that means it can understand, it can it can comprehend, and it can act. And my master's thesis was in robotics and human-robotic interaction. And a robot, in a basic sense, is something that can take a command and then act on it, right? And that's, you have actuators, and then you have a programming element. And I think the intelligence is coming to that. I say that in double quotes. The intelligence is coming to a point where it can understand and now start acting through either writing code or through doing some actions and so on and so forth. And that's actually very, very interesting, because workflows will now happen magically. As I said, earlier in the podcast that the best experience is not having a form at all. Now, what happens? I'll just give you a classic citizen experience that, and most governments are investing in citizen experience, but their process of citizen experience is, hey, you come in an airport, now it's contactless. Fill this form that you used to get in paper before, but fill it all online right now. What if I could just, take a picture of my passport and just send it somewhere and it automatically fills it up? It knows which flights are coming at that point. This is when I say the smartness and then the actions are all correlated. I don't even have to fill a form. What if the cameras itself, as soon as I get into the land in the airport, knows that which gate am I coming from, so it knows my flight, it knows where my previous time I had ended it correlates the data. I don't have to sign a form. And that's when you start realizing that a lot of those data and those elements kind of start connecting together, and which is why as a designer, you start seeing that all those possibilities start coming to the fore.
Amazing. And it's so interesting talking to you today, Satyam. And just to round things off, maybe you could tell us about a big plan or plans that UXReactor has this year, or you have this year. What's 2023 all about to you?
I think 2023 for us is obviously helping a couple of companies. So we obviously are a reasonable size firm, but we are very picky with who we work with, because it's so one of the things for me this year is kind of identify and work with at least 3 or 4 companies that really want to kind of nail this and kind of win with the philosophy of user first and user experience and design before technology. So that's my goal, and I'm out there talking to everyone and saying this is the way to approach it, and the companies that self-select themselves, I love to work with them.
Amazing. Well, Satyam, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Really, yeah, great subject matter for today's show. Loved it. So thanks so much for coming on. We hope to see you again.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Satyam.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how NextThink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nextthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.